Hi, fellow traders. I'm coming back to you this week with my weekly state of my small account address. I'm going to share with you the short week I had, and plus, please stay tuned. I've got what I feel is a pretty important message to end this video with. So, please, even if you don't watch the first part, watch the second part. Maybe it can help you in where you are right now in your trading. So this week was a short week. Everybody knows by now, what my situation was, and I think I might have come back a little bit too soon. I was sitting there and I watched Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. There were some incredible opportunities, and I was just itching to get back on Thursday. Loaded up with some pain medicine to try to so that it wouldn't bother me, but you know, I've said it before and I'll continue to say it. You don't want to trade and make these significant decisions, if you're on some type of medication that's going to alter the way you think. And obviously, narcotics are going to alter the way you think. And I did make a bad decision. I didn't stick to my rules. I'm a little reckless, and that's what it can do. Some people, they can't, the only way they can trade is on drugs. And if you take them off, then they're no good. I'm just the opposite. I have to have 100%, you know, focus on what I'm doing. I can't even drink a whole lot of coffee in the morning, prior to the open because I need to, be 100% there. And I documented my struggles on LUV on Thursday on that video, so I'm not going to repeat all of that. Um, and on Friday, I just had platform issues on, I think on T, it was a winning trade. It was working. Everything was perfect on it, but my platform froze up. I couldn't really see anything that was going on. And what I have to do then, I don't take any chances anymore. I just exit the trade wherever I'm at. And if I get an opportunity to get back in, I will. But smart money is to exit the trade, and that's what I did on it. I tried cutting the video off and everything, but when Thinkorswim freezes, the best thing to do is to log off everything and restart your computer, and that's pretty much what I did. Um, so I don't have that video, but the OLN video, I do have it. I'm going to use it for level 2 because I was in the trade and there was a significant level that it had to break through, and you could see the fight on level 2 and in time and sales, and that's what I'm going to use that video for. So I do have that video. That trade started to work and it hit this $half mark and it got into this big battle and it actually turned around and went the other way. So it was a good out, and it shows exactly what I look for. And I'll have that video. If I can finish it up this evening, I will do it, but if not, it will be up early next week or early this coming week. But you can see where I'm at for the week, down about 120 bucks, but still up overall, still up 62% from where I started. And, it's still not bad. So if I have a good week this week to close out the month, I'm going to be right where I expected to be, at this point. Um, and, you would have been there every step of the way. Now, a lot of people ask me, why am I doing it? Why did I stop, trading the way I traded and making money and starting to do this? Well, there are two things. There's a lot of traders that I work with and that I mentor with that are in this position. And, I'm the type person that says if you can believe it, you can achieve it. So how can you come to believe that you can succeed in trading when you're starting small and you are where you are? Well, you want to watch somebody just like you who succeeded, show you the way. And that's what I'm doing. I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to do what I did the last time. Yeah, I'm in a lot better position, but the bottom line is, it doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank. If you have a small account and you're trading with, your hands are tied. You're handcuffed. That's what it's all about. You're handcuffed, and there's not much more you can do, with the small account other than be patient and trust in what you're doing and believe in the strategies that you have. And that's what I'm doing, and that's what I'm trying to show. So hopefully, you guys can get something from this who are in the same position. I'm just the average guy that started with practically nothing and have gotten to where I am, and it wasn't overnight. I've been trading full time and focusing on this full time for a little over 2.5 years. And, it's not going to happen overnight, and that's not, what I'm advocating. Now, some of you have probably seen this already. It's hit Twitter, I think, a couple days ago. Ross and at Warrior Trading, they kind of took my story as a case study. And if you've seen my blog, you see I started my blog in December of 2014. And that was after I had spent a year trading. And, I had made 9,800 bucks in that 1 year span. Really didn't start clicking until the end of the year. And actually, I watched this webinar that Ross did, and that's where I learned the opening range breakouts and reversals and the things that I have developed into my trading strategies today. So I really say I turned the corner back in November of 2014 when I was introduced to all of these things. Yeah, I was doing pretty good before in terms of I wasn't losing money anymore. I was a little bit more consistent and understanding. And the other thing was, I was a full-time long trader. I did not trade. I did not short. I didn't know how to short. And if I did short, it was by accident. So, this case story is talking about my journey from where I started around January of 2015 to where I was at the end of June. But before that, I started in January 1st of 2014. I had 1,500 bucks. And what I did was I focused just on penny stocks, OTCs, and pink sheets. I thought that was where to go. The guy that got me convinced to try this again, because I started way back in 99 and just didn't have any traction and just kind of never really took off. He convinced me that penny stocks and OTCs were the way to go. So I had spread out some money between SureTrader, TD Ameritrade, and USAA. USAA was just where I already had an account there, so I just opened up a brokerage account or whatever. So I knew I wasn't going to day trade from there because they didn't have a platform or anything. TD Ameritrade, I liked their Thinkorswim. That was kind of the first one that I really looked into. It was free, so that was a no-brainer. SureTrader, I wasn't gonna pay for SureTrader Pro. I was gonna use their free web platform, which was the first mistake I made using them, because that web platform was a nightmare from the beginning. But then by March, I realized what I was doing wasn't working. So TD, I couldn't really trade. I had to wait 3 to 5 days if I made a trade for the money to settle. So I didn't really like that. SureTrader gave me margin, in which by then I felt more comfortable with them, because they were offshore and everything was coming from overseas. I was kind of apprehensive, but I kind of felt comfortable with them, so I put all my money in SureTrader. And by that time, I only had $800 left. When I went over to over to SureTrader exclusively. But by March, I quit with this OTC mess. Started with small caps, and I was only taking long trades. And then, between January and May of that year, I had refunded my account probably 3 times from what I could remember. And I did add it periodically between May and September. Like I said, I would work on cars. If I had $100 or $200 extra, I would just put it in my trading account. And, it didn't really amount to a whole lot, but that's what you can do. Now, SureTrader only allows you to put in $500 increments. So you're going to have to do the $500, increments. And I have saved up some, but I'm not going to put it in, that I would have added. But, I'm going to do this from, just what I had. I'm not going to add any more to it unless I blow it up. And then I'll have to add back. But don't plan on doing that. So by December of 2014, I had 981365 in SureTrader. I pulled out all but 5,000, because I used that balance for Christmas. We had a real good Christmas that year, and I was pretty happy with it. But that's when I decided to start blogging my journey. I wish I had done a blog from when I started, January 2014. There would have been some real good lessons. But that's another reason why I'm doing this, because those lessons I can share with you as I'm going through this. Because the goal is to have taken this 1,500, grow it to 5,000, and then you're going to see exactly what I did to grow, starting with 5,000 and grow it to where I am today. And that whole year, all of 2015, I started every month with $5,000. Whatever profit I made, I wired out at the end of the month and started over with 5,000. The goal was to see if I could make a living just trading with $5,000 and using margin. Because, once you do that and you have some money in the bank, if something happened and all of a sudden SureTrader disappeared and I didn't have any money, well, I would still have what I've been pulling out every month. So I wouldn't be starting over from ground zero. And that was, one of the things that was in my mind when I said I want to start with 5K. And so I'm going to do that again. That's the whole point. We're about halfway there. If we can get all the way there by by the end of August, we could get 5K, then we can start there. And, I'll start doing what I was doing when I got, the 5K before. The only difference is the markets will change. The markets have changed. When I was banking, we were in a strong bull market. It was kind of hard to lose money. You had to really not have any education and be completely oblivious to what trading was about to lose money in 2015. It was through most of it anyway. Now toward the end, it might have been a little tough. Beginning of 2016 was good. And again, by the end of May, we hit a brick wall. And historically, I'm not a strong trader during the summer. I haven't been any of the times that the 3 years that I have been trading, or the 3 summers that I've been trading full time. I just haven't been real strong during the summer, and it's showing its face this summer too. But what I did when I wired out the money, I split it up. I think I started putting 40% in the tax account, but I changed that. I put 30% in the tax account, 10 for each of my kids, college, so that like my daughter's going to college now, I had some money. She went on a trip, that cost a pretty penny. We're getting stuff ready for her to go to college, so we're in a position for that. So my son goes, we'll be in position for him. And then 10% went to personal savings. So that was 60% of all the profits that were designated. So I only had 40% to go back into my trading. So that just went into my USAA account. I wasn't trading out of it, and I knew it was safe there. So that's where I was just saving money until I could open up a Speed Trader account. And I wanted to do Speed Trader because they're closer to Sure Trader. They use the same platform and all of that. So that was my thought process. So if you saw the case study that they put out, that Ross put out at Warrior Trading, this kind of bridges the gap from where I started to where they started that case study. All right, now the message I want to share with you guys today is about the process. Now, learning trading and all of that, I like to make similarities. I like to kind of use different analogies to help people understand what it takes to learn trading. So I was thinking of how this process is similar to me when I learned how to swim. Now, some things in life are so significant to you that you remember them. It doesn't matter how old you are, you're going to remember, what happened, and you're going to remember these things. And learning how to swim was one of those. I'm a water baby. I love water. I love it now. My vision is to live on the water. So, learning to swim was one of those things that just stuck with me, all my life. And the process, and I'm pretty sure they still do it today, is when you're starting to learn, you sit on the side of the water, on the side of the pool, you have your feet in the water, and your instructor is in the pool, and he's talking to you. And he may demonstrate some things, but he's teaching you some safety rules, some things that you do and you don't do. He's teaching you how to do certain things and may demonstrate them. So that's no different than when you're just getting in and you're learning how to trade. You find somebody that interests you. They piqued your interest by their presentation, and you're sitting there on the sidelines. You got your feet in, and you're trying to get a feel for what's going on. You're going through your education at this point. You decide that you want to listen, and you're going to learn. You're going to learn the do's and the don'ts, what to look out for. You're going to get your education. And then you start building trust. Just like when we were doing a swimming lesson, after we heard and we listened, then our instructor built trust with us by grabbing us and pulling us through the water, holding us up, um, carrying us through. We're floating. I mean, just imagine how that feels for the first time. You're floating in the water. Somebody's holding you up. You're not scared. You trust this person not to drop you or let you sink. And they're pulling you through the water and you feel comfortable. That's all during through the education process. You know, and then you trust so much that you take that first jump off the edge, you jump into your instructor's arms because that trust was built from them holding you up and pulling you around the water. You trust that they're going to hold you up when you jump. And that's the trust we have with our teacher or our mentor or whoever we're looking to teach us how to trade stocks. We're taking that jump. We invest that money and we jump in and we trust that that instructor knows what he's doing. He or she knows what they're doing and they're going to help us, learn and realize our dreams. So then, you graduate to the paddling. You've got a little wafer board and you're out there on your own kicking your feet, learning how to kick your feet and propel yourself through the water. Your instructor's not holding you anymore. But you have that training. You got these just like training wheels. You got a training aid. You got something that's going to hold you up. The instructor's not there. They're watching you, but it's helping you navigate. And that is just like you trading in the simulator. You're practicing what you've learned. You're taking what you learned from your instructor and you're practicing it, but you have the safety net of not trading real money. You have the safety net of using a simulator to help you learn and to build your confidence in the water on your own. Then comes a time you put into practice everything that you learned through your instructor's help, through using a wafer board. Then you start these little short swimming bursts. Your instructor stands a few feet away from you and they tell you to push off the wall and swim to me. And when you start trading for real, that's what you're doing. You're taking these small trades, just like we've been doing in this small account. We're taking these small trades using the strategies that we've learned, and we're making these small trades. We're hitting our marks. We're starting in one spot, the entry where we want, and then we're hitting our profit target and we're getting out. Or if the trade doesn't work, we're hitting our stop target, allegedly, and we're getting out. So, we're taking these short bursts. And then before we know it, we're off and we're taking longer term trades. We're able to get in with some size because our account has grown and we can scale out and we can take advantage of larger moves if they present themselves. So to me, this process of learning how to trade just fit hand in hand with the process I went through in learning how to swim. And I was just in the shower the other night and I thought about this. And I'm like, it makes sense to me. So the key to learning was the process. And we have to attack the process every day. Now I have a guy that I adopted as my life coach, and he is all about the process. And when he was talking about process, what it did was that was one of those buzzwords because that's all I was about was the process. Being an educator, there was a process to how I taught my students, how I presented it, how I checked to see if they were learning, and how they, I had them put what I was teaching them into practice. So I was very big on process. And that's why and how I brought this process to trading. So you have to attack this process every day. Every day that you're learning trading, you have to attack this process. You have to trust it. You have to believe in it, because there have been a lot of people that's come through this and that have gone through it and didn't follow the process. They couldn't wait. They had to have it now. I've got a lot of new traders that I mentored with. They signed up for 1 or 2 sessions and they thought that they would be like profitable automatically. That's not how it works. I worked with my mentor for months before I got to where I was. And it's a process, and it takes time, and you have to be willing to put that time in and invest in yourself during that growth. If you don't, you're not going to make it. Yeah, you could, there are some kids who their parents just throw them in the pool and by natural instinct they learn how to swim. Not everybody is like that. Most of us will drown if that happens. So we have to go through a process. And the same way in trading, you have people that can just jump in and automatically be profitable and never look back. But the majority of us aren't like that. So we have to trust that process. We have to get our feet wet. We have to trust our instructor or mentor enough to where we make that first jump. And building trust, it takes time. You want to spend time watching, in the case of trading, we have videos out that you can watch. You can get to know us through our videos. You can listen to us talk. We talk about ourselves. We talk about the things that we look for that's important to us. You get to know us. You get to see what we're doing. And you get to be comfortable with us before you take that jump. People that I work with, that I mentor, they get comfortable with me before we take that jump. I try to talk to them on Skype first, so that we can get to know each other. I can get to know what you're about, what your goals are, what you're looking for, and develop a plan on how I can help you. So it's all about developing that trust with that person who you're looking to teach you before you jump in. You have to be comfortable before you take that first risk. And then continuing to take these small risks will help develop that mentality that you need, so that when you're on your own, you're going to have the right instincts. You're going to be able to deal with the challenges that come with trading. That's the whole thing. You want to build up, you want to understand what it's going to take for you to be able to handle and have the mentality to deal with losses, because you have to losses are part of the game. Look at me last week. I mean, I lost last week, but I'm not down. I'm not crying. I know exactly what I did wrong. And, I'm not going to make that mistake next week. I'm going to hit it, and we're going to hit the ground running, and we're going to do what we need to do. If I lose next week, that's fine. I know I have a track record. I have a documented history through my blog and through everything of what I've learned and what I can do and what I can't do. And I'm not going to let a bad week, a bad day, really, it was just one bad day, affect the way I trade. We can't do that. So all of that I developed as I was going through the process. And no matter how far I get, I'm always going to attack the process. I'm always going to continue learning, and continue growing as a trader. This market changes constantly. There are different elements pulling on it, and you have to be ready to adapt. And the only way you can do that is to continue to attack that process. You want to stay focused on it, and you want to compete every day. Now, I heard this is a message that was in the Nebraska locker room. I think I was listening to a video, and the guy that I listened to a lot, he was talking about how he got to visit this locker room and the Nebraska football locker room, and it said stay focused on the process and compete every day. There's that word process. That's my buzzword. That's his buzzword. So of course I'm going to identify with that, and I'm going to accept and trust him in helping me get to the next level. And so, what that means is you have to make sacrifices every day to get to your vision. And you have to give working your vision your all. And one of the things I've learned is you have your vision up here. You have it up in the sky and you can see it, and it's a beautiful picture that you painted. But what you have to do is bring that vision down to eye level and determine what the steps are, what's the process that's going to enable me to reach my dreams. And that's what you're looking for. Here's my vision. My vision is me being on that boat. Now, am I working toward that? Yeah. Have a boat. It's a start. But I grew up with watching Miami Vice, and I wanted to live on a boat just like Crockett. I love the water. I want to live on a boat so that I get home from work, I can unhook and go for a sail. I didn't want the alligator for a pet, but I wanted the boat. And, I'm working toward that vision. Every day I have that vision, and I know what steps I need to take in order to make that vision a reality. I know what I have to do with my trading. I know the work I need to put in every day so that I continue my march toward my dreams and my reality. So, that's the message I wanted to share with you guys. I try to stay with under 30 minutes, but I ran over a little bit. But when we talk about process, and, I get excited because that's one of the words that excites me. And that's how I do my day. I have a process to how I start my day, a process to how I end my day, and a process throughout the day. Everything about me, is that process. So hope that this helps a lot of people out. It's really near and dear to me, you know, and I just wanted to share it with you. So just remember, rather than focus on the vision, you want to bring it down, put it right in front of you, and try to get those steps in place, that process in place that it's going to take you so that you can learn everything you need to get to where you want to be. That vision is going to help drive you, but you need to keep it right in front of you so that you can, focus on that process every day that's going to help you reach it. So that's it for me for this weekend. I'm going to have the market outlook on my blog posted here before long. Look out for that. I'm trying to post that every week because it's something that we all need to read and kind of have an idea of it going into next week. Not that we trade on it, but we just need to have an idea of what's going on. And I'm looking to have a real good week. Again, I'm doing this because, I want you to see that you can achieve it. You set your goals in place, get everything in place, and you can achieve the dream. I'm doing it, and I'm not gonna take my foot off the pedal. I'm gonna keep driving on, and I'm gonna make it happen. All right, so everybody have a good week. Have green trading out there, and I hope to have some, real good videos for you from my small account. And I will work on that level 2 video too. So if I get it out tonight, I'll have it posted as well. All right, have a great week, everybody, and see you in chat.